Good morning and happy Friday, everyone. My name is Nick Marro with Occupy Fantasy. As always, I'm here to help you break down tonight's NBA DFS slate on both DraftKings and FanDuel. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. Please like the video. Also, subscribe to the channel that helps us get more free content like this out to you on a regular basis. Also, if you're not a member of Occupy Fantasy, check the links in the description below. As a member, you get access to the model you see here with ownership percentages. You can sort by value for both sites. We have our proprietary OF index to show you the best plays on the slate. We also have a single lineup builder, multi lineup builder, as well as a private Discord server full of seasoned DFS pros to help you improve your game. All right, so we got a massive slate tonight. 13 gamer. Obviously, this time of year, NBA gets entirely crazy. I know personally, I'm starting to shift over a lot of my focus more to MLB. You'll see more of me on Occupy working with MLB moving forward, but we are going to continue these NBA videos. They're almost as valuable as ever because there is going to be so much news. A lot of teams tanking, a lot of teams resting, getting ready for the playoffs, etc. But we got 13 games to go through here, so enough of that. Let's just get into it. I mean, the good news is most of these teams aren't on back to back, so we do have a lot of the injury news we need. As always, I'm going to go through game by game, team by team, kind of break things down as quickly as possible. I also have a FanDuel and DraftKings window open. I'm going to slowly build on both sites as we talk through these games. Again, massive slate. Hopefully, I can keep it under a half hour. It's going to be difficult though, so let's get into it here. First game on the slate, we got in the 7 o'clock window. The Charlotte Hornets hosting the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls are 10-point favorites on the road, 224-point game total here. Starting with Charlotte, no LaMelo Ball, obviously, he's probably shut down for the season. I think that's been known. Gordon Hayward is doubtful. Cody Martin is out. Kelly Oubre is questionable. Terry Rozier is out. And Dennis Smith Jr. is also questionable. So, with Dennis Smith Jr. questionable, there is a good chance we end up getting some value here. If he's out, I think we see Theo Maladon slide back into the starting lineup. He'd be very appealing. But his price is up, so 5,500 on DK. 53 over on FanDuel. I don't know that we need to force that in. Svi Mikhailuk probably going to get the start here again. He's been excellent, but now he's priced up where it's tough to really want to play him. 6,300 on DK, 5,200 on FanDuel. Pretty high ceiling, but also a low floor as he's very scoring dependent. Kelly Oubre being questionable. I mean, if he's in, he's going to look really good here. Obviously, most of the high usage players are out. Gordon Hayward, etc. Terry Rozier as well. But if Oubre's in, I don't mind him at 7,200 on DK, 77 over on FanDuel. But if he's out, that's just going to be even more usage and upside for someone like PJ Washington. The $8,500 price tag on DK is tough for me to want to get to. But at 7,700 on FanDuel, I don't mind that at all. So PJ Washington looks good on FanDuel. You're getting him at power forward. You don't have to use up that center spot for him. And then the other piece of news we need to keep an eye on is Mark Williams. They've been resting the centers just kind of randomly. If Williams is out, then we could go back to Nick Richards for value. If Richards is out, that makes Williams a little bit safer. I'm not sure I want to use my center spot up for either of these guys, but I would be more likely to use Richards of the two, and that is only if Williams is out. If suddenly they're both out, then maybe we see someone like JT Thor become very appealing again, or not even JT Thor. Who's the other guy? Kai Jones. He's not in the model currently. But I imagine he'd start at center if both those guys were to rest. But yeah, another team that's kind of tanking. They're pretty much out of it. Got to keep an eye on the news. But as things stand, there's really nothing here I'm prioritizing. Don't mind Dennis Smith Jr. if he's in on both sites. He's reasonably priced. And then PJ Washington looks good over on FanDuel. All right, over on the Chicago side of things, we have Drummond, Green, and Caruso all questionable. So the big three is healthy. That's Levine, DeRozan, Vooch. I think they look fine on both sides. Reasonably priced everywhere. Levine, AK flat on FanDuel is very appealing to me. See that reflected in his ownership as he's 22% owned. DeRozan, similar play, scoring dependent. Even more scoring dependent than Levine, but he has similar or even better upside, so I don't mind DeRozan. And then Vooch is fine in the front court. Not a priority though. There's a lot of good centers on the slate. If Caruso is out, that would be a boost for someone like Patrick Beverly. Beverly's never really the top fantasy producer we're looking for though. But at 4,300 on DK, 4,700 on FanDuel, again, if Caruso is out, I don't mind him as a value piece. There is a chance Kobe White would slide into the starting lineup if Green and Caruso are both out. He'd be interesting here as well. But as things stand, really no major priorities for me. I don't mind the big three if you're landing on them. It is an excellent matchup. I could even see penciling in Levine over on FanDuel where he's AK flat. But with 13 games, I think we could just kind of wait and see. Maybe we get back to him in a little bit. But there's a ton of good plays on this slate. No surprise there. All right, moving into the next game on the board now. We got the Thunder at the Pacers. The Thunder are 2.5 point favorites on the road. 237 point game total here. So starting with the Pacers. Uh, Pacers somewhat mailing it in. They got Halliburton out, Chris Duarte out as well. Miles Turner is questionable. So if Turner's in, he's okay here. Reasonably priced on both sides. He's been resting or just benched a lot lately, though. With Halliburton out, you could go to TJ McConnell. He's likely coming off the bench, though, which means his minutes aren't as secure as a lot of the other players you're going to be paying for in the 6K, 5K range. So I don't mind him here. I actually like Benedict Mathurin probably best. I don't love the price, but I do like the low ownership. He has a very high ceiling, but he's usually better with Buddy Hield out of the lineup, and Hield isn't on the injury report. So as things stand, there's really nothing I'm prioritizing here for Indiana. I will say, though, if Turner is out, we could go back to Jackson or Jalen Smith. Jackson's been the better fantasy producer. Smith's been getting more of the starts, but I think either is a fine option again if Miles Turner is out. So as things stand, I don't mind Turner if he's in. McConnell's okay. But tough to trust those minutes. They've been pretty inconsistent here, even with Halliburton out of the lineup. Over on the OKC side of things, just scrolling down, we have Shea out once again. Kenrich Williams is out. Lindy Waters is out. Obviously, no Chet Holmgren. So this is an interesting situation. With SGA out of the lineup, Josh Giddey and Jalen Williams are going to look excellent on both sites. They did price Giddey up over on DK, though. He's now 8,700 over there. Kind of tough to get to. Jalen Williams, that's Jelen. Don't confuse him with the other Jalen Williams, that's IN, is an excellent play on both sites. I like him probably even more than the field does. Don't love that he's only power forward eligible over on DK, but for me, he's probably my favorite play from these Thunder. I'm comfortable saying that. I'm going to go ahead and pencil him in on both sites. Just click the wrong window there, but no big deal. Where is he? There we go. All right, so we got Williams here on FanDuel. I also really like Giddey. Same price as a Zach LaVine. He showed a really high ceiling lately with SGA out of the lineup, and this is a great game environment, very high total against a mediocre defense. So I do really like some of these Thunder pieces. Who else are we taking a look at? Lou Dort here looks fine as a wing, pretty inconsistent even with SGA out, but he does have increased usage and upside. So I don't mind him at 5,900 on both sites. And then Isaiah Joe, as long as he's starting, he's scoring dependent, going to be taking a lot of shots though. Very high upside if his 3 points 3 point shots are falling, so I don't mind him here either. But yeah, the priorities right now are Jalen Williams, that's Jelen Williams, and Josh Giddey. Giddey a little bit overpriced on DK, so maybe you go with someone like Isaiah Joe for a little bit of value over there. We can just pull up his game logs quickly. Don't have too much time to dig into individual players on a 13-game slate. Pretty inconsistent, but you see those outlier performances there. 40-point fantasy games out of a 5K player is always nice. So I don't mind some Isaiah Joe. I'll go ahead and pencil him in. You can play him at shooting guard, which is nice as well. All right. So moving into the next game on the board now. We have the Magic at the Wizards. Wizards 1 point underdogs at home, just a 224.5 point game total here. So decent game environment, really nothing to get excited about though. Starting with Orlando, they are about as healthy as they've been all season. Jonathan Isaac is out, no surprise there. I think Kevon Harris is the other player out as well, but he's not really a major rotational piece at this point. So I like Monchero more so on DK where he's 7,400. Don't mind him on FanDuel. Fultz, Wagner, Carter Jr., all decent plays, but with Suggs back in the lineup now, they're all seeing a little bit less usage, which obviously hurts their fantasy upside. So these are decent plays for Orlando, even Cole Anthony, Suggs. I mean, I already talked about Suggs, but really anyone who starts and then whichever of these guards comes off the bench, Anthony, Suggs, they're going to look fine here as well. But there's really no priorities for me on this Orlando Magic team. They're just kind of priced where they should be. And again, this is a healthy team, and that is a rarity on this slate. So we're getting injury and just teams resting players, creating a lot of opportunities. We're not getting that with Orlando. So it's tough to prioritize anything here. But if you're landing on any of the starters, especially Paulo, I don't mind them at all. Over on the Wizards side of things, we do have some significant news. Bradley Beal is out again, as is Kyle Kuzma. Daniel Gafford is questionable. So with Beal and Kuzma out, we can continue to click on Kristaps Porzingis. He's priced up a bit now, still not at 10K, but over that 9K flat tag, he's been kind of hovering around. So I do like Porzingis on both sides. Denny Avila has been outstanding. Now he's priced over 7K though, so he's going to be tough for me to want to prioritize. And then who else? Daniel Gafford's listed as questionable. If he's in, I do think he's actually a decent play, right around 5K flat. Monte Morris, if he's starting a point guard, looks fine here, sub 6K on both sides, but really the prize slash priority here for the Wizards is certainly Kristaps Porzingis. I think they're working on a big contract for him right now. He's going to get a max deal, which is good to see. He finally found a place where he's wanted. But that should take a little pressure off his shoulders. He has been outstanding most of the season, so I don't think I'm going to call him a priority. There are better pay ups on the slate tonight, but with Beal and Kuzma out, I'm not going to fault anyone for wanting to play some Porzingis. All right, moving in to the next game on the slate, we have the 76ers hosting the Raptors. Sixers are 5.5 point favorites at home, 224.5 point game total here. Starting with Philadelphia. Come on, LMNOP. We got Oh wow! So Harden and Embiid are both off the injury report. That's the first time in a long time. So they're healthy. Obviously, if you're getting to Embiid or Harden, you can feel pretty good about it. Maxi's overpriced now that these guys are back. I mean, he's been outstanding, but really that's with either or both of them out of the lineup. Um, Anthony Melton's really not that interesting to me anymore here either. He's priced up as though one of these two guys is going to be out. Harris around 6K. He's borderline viable. If I'm playing 150 lineups, I wouldn't be upset if I'm landing on a little bit of Tobias Harris. But really, the only plays I have any interest in here for the Sixers are Embiid and Harden. And kind of given the price point on Harden, where he's pushing 10K, I'm more likely to pay up for Embiid. So I do like Embiid here if you're landing on him. One of the better raw point upside plays on the slate, but not really a priority for me. Neither is James Harden. But those are the two plays I'd have any interest in at all. All right, over on the Toronto side of things now, obviously a tough defensive matchup against the 76ers. We have Barton questionable, Trent questionable, Banton questionable. So a lot of secondary plays questionable. I mean, Trent is a major rotational piece. If he's out, that should increase the usage for Van Fleet, Siakam, Barnes, and OG. If Trent's in, he's fine. But again, is the team kind of priced where they should be? Really nothing here I want to prioritize. Not only are they priced where they should be, but it's also a tough matchup with the 76ers. So if you're landing on any of these starters, fine, but really nothing's a priority or even close to a core play for me here from Toronto. All right, moving into the 7:30 window now. We have the Brooklyn Nets hosting the Atlanta Hawks. Nets are 2 point underdogs at home. We have a massive 240.5 point game total here. I'll start with Atlanta. DeAndre Hunter is questionable, out, as is Jalen Johnson. If Hunter's out, that should create a little bit more usage for the other wings and forwards. Guys like John Collins and Bogdanovich would look a little bit better. Capella's been decent. He's reasonably priced. Don't mind him as a center option. Certainly not a priority, though. There's better center plays on the slate. But if you're getting to Trae Young, especially on DK at 8,900, I do really like that price. Seeing him below 9K in a game with a 240.5 point game total is very appealing to me. DeJounte Murray as well over on DK, 7,600 certainly feels too cheap. They're kind of priced where they should be on FanDuel, so I'm not going to get to much Young or Murray over there. But on DK, they both feel underpriced, especially Trae, sub 9K on DK. That's certainly a rarity. So I like Young and Murray much better on DK than they are on FanDuel, though, and the Compel is fine. Don't mind Collins or Bogdanovich if Hunter is out. If Hunter's in, he's viable, but not a priority. Over on the Brooklyn side of things, we have no David Duke Jr. Dayron Sharp is probable. Ben Simmons has been shut down for the season. So no major injury news here. Kind of everything we've already been seeing. Bridges looks great. He's been excellent. This Nets team's fighting to hold on to that 6th seed so they don't have to be part of the play-in tournament. So they are certainly still incentive for these Nets to play well. I like Bridges here. He's fine on both sides. Again, 240.5 point game total is very appealing. 7,800 actually on DK. I might go ahead and just pencil that in. I like him. I don't know that he's a core for most. Maybe we pull him as we talk through the slate, but for now, I do like Bridges here as a shooting guard play. Dinwiddie as well, not quite the same usage as Bridges, but he does a lot in terms of assists and rebounds. So Dinwiddie's a fine play on both sides, reasonably priced. AK on FanDuel, just under on DK. Claxton, another good center option here, 7,100 on DK, 7,600 on FanDuel. Yeah, really appealing option actually. Decent matchup here against Atlanta. I mean, they're decent in the front court defense, but they play very fast, which creates more opportunity to score fantasy points. So I like all three of those guys. That's Bridges, Dinwiddie, Claxton. After that, you can play some Cam Johnson, very scoring dependent though, needs to hit a lot of threes to hit value, but he does do it probably like 1 out of every 3 slates. So there is some appeal to going to a player like Johnson. Royce O'Neal's fine. Even coming off the bench, he's been hitting value pretty consistently, so he's fine as a secondary play. But really, I'm only interested in Bridges, Dinwiddie, and Claxton here. Don't mind Johnson or O'Neal, but really doubt I get to them heavily. Um, all right, moving into the next game on the slate, we just move across the town to, or no, not across the town. I thought the Knicks were at home. The Knicks are on the road in Cleveland. Cleveland's 3.5 point favorite at home, 222 point game total here. So let's start with the Cavs. We got Jared Allen doubtful. That's a big piece of news. Okoro's out, Windler's out. That's really it. So first and foremost, Evan Mobley sees a nice boost with Jared Allen out of the lineup. He's priced up now though, so 9K on FanDuel is really tough for me to want to get to, even at that power forward spot. 8,600 on DK. I mean, he does have a very high ceiling, but that's just not a priority for me on such a massive slate. I will say Garland's way too cheap over on DK. 7,400 is just kind of egregious. Really like him over there. Mitchell, obviously the higher ceiling, but he's much more expensive on both sites. Garland, 8,100, you could play him on FanDuel. But for me, I really only consider him a core play over on DK. So I'm going to go ahead and add Garland for now. Again, maybe as we talk through the slate, there's so many games we could pull some like Bridges or Garland, but for now, I do like kind of a balanced build. Karis LeVert could slash should slide into the starting lineup with Allen out if they move Mobley down to the 5. I also wouldn't be surprised to see Lamar Stevens get the start. Whichever one of these two gets a start here is okay as kind of a mid-range value play, but neither are really priorities for me. If you want to roll the dice on someone like Rubio, obviously has a pretty high fantasy point per minute rate. It's just the minutes have been so inconsistent on him. So really love Garland here, especially on DK. Mitchell's obviously fine if you're landing on him. Mobley, excellent play, but a little bit overpriced now, even with Allen out of the lineup. All right, moving over to the Knicks side of things. Julius Randle's out. Obviously, that is a massive, massive piece of news. One of the higher usage players on this team. So we're going to see an increase in rebounding and usage for someone like Mitchell Robinson. He looks fine on both sides, especially on DK at 4,300. That just seems way too cheap. Josh Hart should see more run now with Randle out of the lineup, 5,800 on DK, 62 over on FanDuel. Excuse me. He's fine here as well. RJ Barrett, Jalen Brunson. Brunson's going to see a nice bump in usage. So really, all the starters are going to look better. Quickly coming off the bench is going to look good, but the issue with him is he's overpriced now because we've had a bunch of games with Jalen Brunson out of the lineup. Quentin Grimes has had some massive games, but now he's 6K on both sides, so he's a little bit tougher to get to. So yeah, I do like some pieces from the Knicks here. It's just they're in a very tough matchup with Cleveland. Tough for me to want to call any of them real priorities, knowing there are much better game environments on the board. But I'm not going to fault anyone for getting to any of these starters. All right, moving into the next game on the slate, we do have a back-to-back in this one. The Jazz are at the Celtics. Celtics, 13.5 point favorites at home, 232 point game total here. Last time these teams played, Utah upset Boston, so there's maybe a little bit of extra incentive for Boston to put their pedal to the floor here, for lack of a better term. But they are on a back-to-back. No injury report yet for the Celtics. If Tatum were to rest, obviously Brown becomes excellent. If Brown were to rest, obviously Tatum becomes excellent. If any of the three guards, Smart, Brogdon, or White, are out, it boosts the other two guards. Williams played last night. If he's out, it's a boost to Horford. If Horford's out, it's a boost to Williams. But this is all speculative. We have none of this news yet. This is a team on a back-to-back, but it seems more likely than not that they're going to all be healthy and all play here, in which case I wouldn't mind getting to some Tatum or Brown, but not going to call anything from Boston a priority unless we get some injury news. Over on the Utah side of things, Jordan Clarkson is out. Lauri Markkanen is out. Kelly Olynyk questionable. Colin Sexton out as well. So if Olynyk's in, I do like him here. Don't love the price tag, but he's still below 7K, so there's certainly merit to getting to him. We finally saw Chris Dunn get closing minutes last time out, albeit in a blowout, but sub 6K on both sites. He works as guard value, again, with Clarkson and Sexton out of the lineup. Fontecchio, likely to get the start here on the wing. He's fine as value, not a priority, though. And then Walker Kessler, already seeing a nice boost in usage with Olynyk out of the lineup, or not Olynyk, Markkanen out of of the lineup, but if Olynyk's out as well, he's going to look even better. So Kessler's certainly a center play I'll be keeping an eye on. Taylor Horton Tucker has been outstanding, but now he's a bit overpriced. 7,900 on DK, 7,200 on FanDuel. Really tough for me to want to get to. I will say he becomes more interesting on FanDuel if Olynyk's out, but for now, really no priorities for me on the Jazz. And then Agbaji is capable of getting hot. He does have a pretty high ceiling, but at 5,300, that's not the type of gamble I'm trying to make on a 13-game slate. All right, we are finally into the 8 o'clock window now, just chugging along here. We got the Rockets hosting the Pistons. Rockets 5.5 point favorites at home, 228.5 point game total here for Houston. We can start on Detroit. Detroit tanking, no surprise there. We got Bojan out, Burks out, Cade out, Diallo out, Magruder out, and Stewart out as well. I clicked Denver instead of Detroit, so let's fix that. But yeah, so with all these guys out, someone like Killian Hayes looks okay here. He's a little bit overpriced for a guy that doesn't shoot the ball all that often, but he is going to see a bunch of usage with guys like Burke and Bojan out. Jaden Ivey, very scoring dependent. He's priced up now. Does have a pretty high ceiling in a good matchup, but not something I'd be prioritizing. Um, with Isaiah Stewart out, that also boosts front court plays like Duren, Wiseman, and Bagley, but those three are all competing with each other for minutes, usage, rebounds. So really no priorities for me on Detroit. I do like Killian Hayes on both sites. He's probably my favorite of the options here, but pretty inconsistent. So I'm fine getting to some Hayes or Ivy, but nothing on Detroit really standing out. Over on the Houston side of things now, we have Kmart Jr. is questionable. Jayshawn Tate is out. That's really the only significant injury news. With Tate out, if Martin's out as well, there's a very good chance we see Tari Eason slide in the starting lineup, in which case Eason would become a very solid value play on both sides. He already is on DK with Tate out of the lineup, but with Martin out, he'd become a priority for me. So definitely keep an eye on that one. If Tyree Eason is starting, I do love him on both sides. Really solid mid-range option. Green and Porter both healthy. They're fine as guard plays, reasonably priced on both sides. I do like the 6,900 price tag over on DK on Green. But again, tons of good guard plays on the slate. Tough for me to call either a true priority / core play. Alperen Sengun, another decent center option, has been seeing enough minutes to hit value consistently, but at the same time, again, just a lot of good options on a 13-game slate, so nothing we have to force here. Smith, fine, better if Martin's out, but again, Eason's really the one play I'm very interested in here, but it's kind of moderate interest unless we get news that Martin is indeed sidelined. All right, moving into the next game on the slate now. We have the Grizzlies hosting the Clippers. Grizzlies are 6.5 point favorites at home, 235 point game total here. Steven Adams is out. Brandon Clark is out. John Morant is back. Kenny Lofton is back down with the G League. Zaire Williams is out as well. So Memphis has been strange lately. They've been like randomly resting Ja, randomly resting some of their starters. It sounds like they'll be mostly healthy tonight, other than in the front court. You could get to some Xavier Tillman over on FanDuel, but he's priced up over 6,500 now. So even at power forward, it's tough for me to want to play him. I don't mind Ja on both sides. 9,900 on FanDuel feels a bit too cheap. 10-1 over on DK, totally reasonable. So he's a decent option here. Desmond Bain as well. Better on FanDuel at 7,600, but just over 8K on DK, he's fine there. And then Dylan Brooks, high ceiling, low floor, but on a 13-gamer, I don't think we have to take that risk. Jaren Jackson's been good, but with this team healthy, he's tough to call a priority. Luke Kennard's been good, but he's priced up now, and with this team healthy, he is also tough to call a priority. So unless we get some kind of late breaking news for these Grizzlies, there's nothing here I'm really all that interested in other than Ja Morant or maybe Desmond Bain. All right, over on the Clippers side of things now, taking a look. We got Brandon Boston is out, Paul George is out, Kawhi Leonard is questionable, Marcus Morris is out as well. So if Kawhi's in, he's a good play here. Obviously, with Paul George being out, he becomes really the only major focal point of this offense. Norm Powell came back from injury. I'm interested to check how many minutes he played, so I'll pull this up quickly. Only 24. So, I mean, if Kawhi's out again and then we get word that Powell won't be limited, he's going to become an interesting value play. But for now, I'd proceed with some caution. I don't think he necessarily gets the 30 minutes here. The one play we do have to really keep an eye on is Russell Westbrook, as crazy as that sounds. He's coming off the best game he's had in years with Kawhi out of the lineup. So if Kawhi's out again tonight, I could go back to Westbrook. Feel pretty good about it. 8,700 on DK, 8,300 over on FanDuel, drawing really no ownership. I expect that ownership would go up in a big way if Kawhi is indeed resting here. But I think it's more likely than not that we see Kawhi play. So keep an eye on this situation. If Kawhi's in, I like him. Probably the one Clipper I'm really interested in. If he's out, Westbrook becomes the one Clipper I'm very interested in. But you could also maybe get to some secondary options like Eric Gordon, Norm Powell if that minutes limit is lifted. I played some Batum last slate with Kawhi out. It went terribly. Probably don't want to go back there. But if Terrace Mann slides into the starting lineup, he's okay as a guard value piece as well. But yeah, it's Kawhi or Russ, depending on that injury news. And we already talked about the Grizzlies. All right, we got the Lakers at the Timberwolves in the next one. Timberwolves are 1 point favorites at home, 232.5 point game total here. Lakers playing to get into the playoffs. Timberwolves still fighting for seeding, so this should be one of the more competitive games on the slate. Let's start with the Lakers. Mo Bamba is out. LeBron is questionable, but I do expect he plays, and then Anthony Davis is listed as probable. So this is another team. They're all kind of priced up as though LeBron is out, but LeBron is back. 9,800 on DK for LeBron, certainly tempting. Not sure I get to him though, given the inconsistencies in minutes as he works his way back from injury. Anthony Davis, obviously a very high ceiling, but I'd rather get to someone more consistent like an Embiid or Jokic if he is in for Denver. We'll talk about them in a bit. Austin Reeves has been outstanding, but mostly with LeBron out of the lineup. He's a little bit overpriced knowing his upside. A lot of those big games from him also came with D'Angelo Russell out of the lineup, and Russell's back now, so just another example of a team who saw their prices rise with some guys out, and now they're all healthy. So it's really tough to want to get to anything aggressively from these Lakers. Over on the Minnesota side of things, we got Kyle Anderson and Anthony Edwards both probable. Noel, Prince, Reed, Rivers, Ryan all questionable. I think Reed's going to be out. I'm pretty sure he has a fractured hand. They also have Karl Anthony Towns listed as probable. So Karl Anthony Towns is actually interesting to me here. He's a little bit underpriced knowing his upside. He's been seeing increased minutes and usage. I love him here. So of all the Timberwolves, that's probably the play I'm most interested in, especially on FanDuel. Or no, wow, he's power forward on both sides now. No center eligibility for Towns. I guess with Gobert in the lineup, that makes some sense, but obviously he is kind of a center in nature. So I like Towns on both sides. Gobert's fine, not a priority. Mike Conley's cheap enough to consider, but not a priority. And then Anthony Edwards has a high ceiling. He's just been pretty inconsistent lately. So I don't know that I want to allot that high salary to someone like Edwards who hasn't been consistent at all. So Karl Anthony Towns is really the one Timberwolf player I'm very interested in. I could actually see penciling him in right now. Just taking a look at the minutes. Yeah, he got over 33 minutes again last time out. Hasn't really flashed the ceiling, but at 8,100 against a tall Lakers team, I could see him having a big game here. Not going to pencil him in quite yet. We don't really have enough value for my liking, so I'll leave him out for now. But Anthony Towns looks excellent here, and I don't mind Conley, Edwards, or Gobert. If Kyle Anderson, or he's listed as probable, so he should be good to go. If Torian Prince is out, that does secure minutes for him, though, so Kyle Anderson could be interesting as a secondary play. All right, we're almost through. We got a few more games here. Moving into the 10 o'clock window now. Let's see. Going in the order of the injury report, we got the Kings at the Blazers. The Kings are 14-point favorites on the road. So a lot of the value for tonight is going to come from this Blazers team. I'll start with Sacramento though. Dellavedova is out. Really, if that's even significant, I don't know. But everyone else is healthy. So another team kind of priced where they should be. Obviously, some blowout risk here. Sabonis and Fox both fine plays if you're landing on them or you're loading up on Portland. It makes sense. It's kind of a correlation play. But another healthy team, a little bit overpriced. Guys like Herter, Lyles, Barnes, Murray, even Monk, fine as secondary options. None are really priorities, though. Don't mind Fox or Sabonis, but again, not really the spot I'm looking to pay up for players in a game with such a wide spread when we have so many different places to choose from. But keep in mind, the field's going to be thinking the same way, so you could get them at pretty low ownership. But over on the Portland side of things, a lot more to talk about. Here we go. Archie Diacono, doubtful. Jeremy Grant, out. Keon Johnson, out. Dame Lillard, Yusuf Nurkic out, Cam Reddish doubtful, Anthony Simons out, Trendon Watford questionable. So if Watford's in, he's going to look really good here. If Watford's out, Drew Eubanks becomes a priority for me. Kevin Knox has actually been a lot better than I think anyone expected with all these guys out. This is a guy who was almost out of the league. Um, Pretty high draft pick in his prime. But yeah, 5K flat on both sites. I'll go ahead and add Knox. I don't think that Watford news matters too much for him. But again, if Watford's in, I like him. If Watford's out, I think you go to Drew Eubanks and feel pretty good about it. Nasir Little looks fine here. Overpriced on DK, 5,600, but 4,700 on FanDuel, certainly solid. Shady on Sharp, definitely the best scorer on this team, definitely the most upside, but he is priced accordingly now, just under 8K on both sites. So I really like Knox here. He's the priority for me. Little looks good on FanDuel. Then Trendon Watford, if he's in, is excellent. I'd pencil him in, but there's a good chance he's out, so I don't want to do that right now. If he's out, though, you go to Drew Eubanks as a pivot, and that's a pretty easy pivot to make. So a lot to like for Portland as they are tanking in a good matchup with the Kings. A couple more games here. We have the Spurs at the Warriors. Warriors 17.5 point spread. That's like a college football spread. Totally ridiculous. We'll start with Golden State as they host the Spurs. 242 point game total here. Um, Iguodala's out. Wiggins is still out. That's the only significant injury news. So another team kind of priced where they should be with a very wide spread. So it's tough for me to call anything a priority here. Draymond feels a little bit too cheap on DK at 6,500. Don't mind Looney as a center play. Don't really want to use up that center spot on him though. Um, so he's okay. But guys like Poole, Thompson, Curry, all fine in tournaments. Draymond, DiVincenzo is okay, and then if Kuminga gets a start, he's okay as value. But for me to want to play anything here, healthy Golden State team in a good matchup with San Antonio, but likely one where they run them out of the gym, it's just not really a spot I'm prioritizing any Golden State Warriors. Over on the Spurs side of things, though, Charles Bassey's out, Kem Birch is out, Zach Collins is out, Langford is questionable, McDermott is probable, Sochan is out, and Vassell is questionable. So, what does this mean? It means we can go back to our old friend Sandro Mamukashvili. Um, Pretty controversial in the DFS space because the minutes aren't always there for him, but he's such a high fantasy point per minute player. I'm still comfortable getting to him in smaller field stuff and cash games. In large field tournaments, there's certainly merit to getting off of the Sandro chalk, but they really don't have much else in the front court. So even if this game blows out, I think we see plenty of Sandro here. Again, it is Greg Popovich, so anything can happen, but especially on FanDuel where you can play him at power forward, I'll go ahead and pencil him in. On DK as well, I mean, 5K flat, you get two center spots. Don't mind using him there. Um, who else? I mean, Vassell looks fine here. He's questionable though. If he's out, that would boost the other guards. Trey Jones would become very appealing. If Devontae Graham gets to start over Jones, he'd be very appealing. But yeah, everything else is kind of priced where it should be. Excuse me. Don't like Keldon Johnson. Don't love the price on him though, so he's tougher to get to. Malachi Branham, if he starts, is viable as wing value, but really nothing I'm prioritizing. So Sandro is once again the priority for the Spurs here. Should be okay regardless of game script, but certainly a spot we're going to have to keep an eye on. And we got one more game here. The Suns are not on the injury report. Did they play last night? It's refreshing. Just checking to see if anything's changed because I'm not surprised we're not seeing Denver. They're on a back to back. But the fact the Suns aren't even listed on the injury report is a little bit concerning to me. All right, regardless, let's get into it. So Denver's on a back-to-back here. Jokic rested last night. It's been said he is kind of questionable going in today. We don't have that official injury report, but news said he is uncertain to play. Jamal Murray seems likely to be out. So even with Jokic in, Bruce Brown's going to become appealing as a value option, especially on DK at 4,700. Almost built a full lineup over on DK. What's Brown's position? Point guard, or I'll pull Bridges. I do like Bridges a lot, but I mean, for the sake of value, I'll go ahead and add Bruce Brown. Um, Over on FanDuel at 5,800 though, not nearly as appealing, but he does have upside with Murray out of the lineup as he's likely to start. Caldwell Pope, Porter, Gordon, all fine plays. We could see more minutes for Christian Brown, who would be appealing here as a value play, but um, I don't know. If Jokic and KCP are in, I probably don't get to him at all. If Jokic is in, though, he is one of the better pay ups on the board. Certainly worth considering. I don't know why I'm yawning so much. If he's in and healthy, um, but yeah, situation we're gonna have to keep an eye on. Jokic uncertain, Caldwell Pope uncertain, Murray unlikely to play. Just another wait and see, which is tricky because it is the last game on the board. But hopefully we get that news before the 10 o'clock game's locked, which should at least give you some ability to pivot and maneuver. All right, now let's talk about Phoenix here. And since we don't have any sort of injury report for them, they're not on a back-to-back either. Um, I guess we just assume they're healthy. So if Phoenix healthy with KD back in the lineup, that's obviously going to cut into the usage of guys like Booker and Paul. We're seeing ownership still going to Okogie even with Durant back. He's been getting the starts over Torrey Craig. A little bit better of a spacer than Craig is, so that makes some sense to me. But I'm not going to prioritize Okogie, even at that high ownership on FanDuel. I just think that's, I mean, not even with. I think that ownership is even more reason to get away from him. So Paul, Booker, Ayton, Durant all have upside, but it's tough on any given night to know which of the four is really going to go off. And then Okogie getting some love, but really not a priority for me here at all. All right, so we got through the 13 games now. I'll do a quick refresh of the model. I'll click over to DK, see what we built so far. So we got Isaiah Joe. Make sure he's starting here with the SGA out. I imagine he will. Darius Garland, too cheap. Kevin Knox, really solid option for Portland. Again, if Watford is out, we could get to Eubanks. If Watford's in, he's good. Jalen, Jalen Williams looks great here for OKC. And then Sandro and Bruce Brown as kind of later value plays look good. You're left with 7,500 per player. Um, so yeah, you want to play someone like Embiid, you're left with 4K for that last spot. So not bad at all, in my opinion. Then over on FanDuel, we didn't pencil in nearly as much. Let me take a quick look at the ownership, see which kind of chalk plays I'm missing. Nasir Little, I don't know. He's been pretty inconsistent, not rushing to get to him. We got Gideon Williams and Sandro and Knox. Gideon Williams, Sandro, Knox. Yeah, those are kind of the four core plays for me over there. I like Levine's price. I'll go ahead and add him. 8K flat. But yeah, you get the picture here. Nothing too surprising. Maybe you can go to someone like Killian Hayes as well. I like the price on him over on FanDuel in a great matchup. So you're left with around 6,600 per player, not bad at all. But yeah, a lot of injury news we're still waiting on. It's a 13 game slate. Don't lock up all those spots in the first games of the night. Leave yourself some room to pivot. On most of these slates, good value tends to open up as we progress throughout the night. Once again, my name's Nick Marro. You can find me on Twitter at Nick Marro DFS. I'm going to be around more doing these NBA breakdowns and also helping with the MLB product. So looking forward to more FaceTime with you. And if you're not an Occupy Fantasy member, check the links in the description below. Sign up today. A lot of great tools, great community. And yeah, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Let's have some fun tonight, everyone. Enjoy your Fridays. Let's make some money. Take care.